can share this video, maybe upload it on YouTube. And if you have any question or anything looks ambiguous or so, please jot down your question and ask at the end of my presentation. Well, I'm Milad Khademi Nori, and I'm going to present my paper, which is named QGSA Quantum-Inspired Gravitational Search Algorithm, Cluster Health Selection Approach for Hierarchical Routing Protocols in EH-WSNs. Here is how I organize my presentation. First of all, I'm going to introduce energy harvesting by the sensor networks, which is abbreviated as EH-WSNs. I'm going to talk about applications of EH-WSNs, what are components of EH-WSNs, and I'm going to declare what are problems of EH-WSNs. Then current protocols and approaches for EH-WSNs will be discussed. I will explain classical and non-classical protocols, and I will clear out pros and cons of each one. Afterward, I'm going to propose and demonstrate our protocol and show how it surpasses current protocols and what is exactly the superiority of our protocol. At the end, I'm going to conclude our presentation. So, EH-WSNs have a couple of applications, and I'm going to talk about this application. I'm going to say how EH-WSNs exactly serve these applications. First of all, I'm going to talk about smart parking, which is an attempt to automate the process of reserving parkings. And it is necessary to deploy a number of nodes which can check the presence of cars in different locations. In the case of smart agriculture, we have to measure a couple of parameters in different parts of the farmland, such as the humidity of the soil, the temperature, and the intensity of the sunlight. And of course, there are more applications than that, but it is enough just right for now. Let's talk about the components of EH-WSNs. EH-WSNs consist of a large number of nodes. These nodes are equipped with the following 5 units: a central processing unit, a wireless transceiver unit, one or multiple sensor units, an energy storage unit, and finally an energy harvesting unit, which is a source of energy. A typical node is shown in the picture. As you can see, the node is equipped with a small solar cell so that the node can harvest energy from the environment. I'm going to talk about some problems of the EH-WSNs. Even though EH-WSNs could harvest energy from the environment, the collected energy and the real demand do not meet because of the stochastic nature of the harvested energy. Thus, such networks suffer from intermittent failure. And secondly, due to the limited range of EH-WSN, they rely on multi-hop transmission to deliver their packets to the base station located far away. Therefore, protocols should first of all support multi-hop transmission, and secondly, perform as energy efficiently as possible. Current protocols, existing protocols, are either flat or hierarchical. It has been shown that hierarchical protocols are significantly more energy efficient than flat protocols. This picture, the top one, juxtaposes hierarchical protocols and flat protocols. As you can see in hierarchical protocols, the network is separated into some clusters, and each cluster has a cluster head which is in charge of transmitting all the packets of its cluster back to the base station. And it is worth mentioning that hierarchical protocols work, the operation of hierarchical protocols is divided into some rounds. Each round is consisted of 2 parts: this setup phase, which is at the beginning of each round, and the steady state phase. At the setup phase, a couple of new cluster heads are selected to balance the energy consumption all over the network. And so, 2 decisions mainly determine the energy efficiency of protocols, hierarchical protocols. First, the clustering technique, and second, the cluster head selection approach. According to my classification, we have two kind of hierarchical protocols. First, non-classic protocols, which they do not rely on well-known clustering approaches, like Leech, DRL, EPSO, and so on. The advantage of these protocols is that they do not rely on GPS, but they form inefficient clusters. On the other hand, classical protocols like QGSA can form efficient clusters, but they rely on GPS module, which is a big disadvantage. Because GPS module increases the implementation cost, increases the energy consumption, and GPS works poorly for indoor applications. Our proposed protocol clusters the whole network efficiently using agglomerative clustering without assuming that nodes are equipped by GPS. It selects reliable CHS, which leads to the lowest energy consumption for the certain cluster according to an integer linear program problem solved by quantum-inspired gravitational search algorithm. And our protocol consists of 8 steps, which 7 of them are just done at the initialization phase. The last step is required to be operated at the beginning of each round. So that's only the last step is just the overhead of our protocol. And our game changer is the mathematical idea that a noisy or semi-complete Euclidean distance matrix could be reconstructed by an acceptable accuracy. Here, this picture portrays the whole part of all the steps of our protocol. And as you can see, our protocol is comprised of 8 steps. At the first step, each node measures the RSSI of its neighbors and collects them into a vector. Then all nodes send these measurements to the BS. The BS now knows all these RSSI measurements, so it can estimate the distances. Then the BS gathers and merges all these distance vectors together and forms an incomplete Euclidean distance matrix. And then reconstructs this EDM and then executes the clustering algorithm, which is in our case is agglomerative clustering, forms a spanning tree, and at the end selects a cluster head for each cluster. And this is the product, the output of our protocol. As you can see, 4 clusters can send their packets, deliver their packets to the base station with the help of intermediary clusters. And here I'm going to talk about our protocol a little bit more. As I said before, at the first step, we gather we measure the RSSI, each node measures the RSSI of its neighbors, those nodes that are located in its range. Second, that's the time to transmit the RSSI vectors collections to the base station. But the problem is that many nodes are located far from the base station, so we do need to establish a rudimentary cluster, rudimentary routing protocol to send the measurements to the base station. And then we estimate the distances based on these RSSI vectors and merge these to a matrix. Now that's time to reconstruct it. I'm going to talk about the process of reconstruction, how it is possible that we can reconstruct a matrix, a semi-complete matrix. The Euclidean distance matrix have a couple of characteristics. The characteristic which is the foundation of reconstruction is that the rank of an Euclidean distance is 4. And it is shown that you can exactly reconstruct the whole matrix just knowing 4 rows or columns. And this is the foundation of reconstructing a semi-complete matrix. Then we can execute the clustering algorithm, but we don't know how many clusters we are going to have. It's 5, 6. It is proved that the optimal number of clusters can be executed, can be calculated according to equation 5. Then we form the spanning tree, the minimum cost spanning tree, to connect all isolated clusters together. The cost between each two clusters can be calculated according to equation 6. And the final step is the cluster selection. We did it by formulating an ILP. The objective of the ILP is the amount of energy consumed in a cluster, which consists of 2 parts: the energy consumption of the members and the energy consumption of the cluster. Eta is the energy consumption of the members, and delta is the energy consumption of cluster heads. The energy consumption of cluster heads itself consists of 2 parts: the energy consumption to send the packets of its cluster, and the energy consumption to send the packets of other clusters. Remember that a cluster head has to send both packets of its cluster and other clusters. At the end, I'm going to talk about our constraints of our ILP. It is shown that the energy update function. Okay, this is done. Our constraint is that, our reliability constraint is that the sum of residual energy and harvested energy, the expected harvested energy minus energy consumption for a selected cluster, should be positive. And the equation 14 says that we should just select one cluster. At the end, as large ILPs are generally intractable, using approximation methods or heuristic methods can decrease the computational cost and processing time. We employed a QGSA, quantum inspired gravitational search approach, which is a binary method. On the other hand, our problem is also a binary problem, so utilizing QGSA for our problem is appropriate. And although meta-heuristic algorithms do not guarantee the optimality, they give a suboptimal solution in a reasonable amount of time. We investigated and examined our protocol and compared with other algorithms according to these 2 metrics. The first is energy efficiency, and the second one is net packet loss percentage. As you can see, our protocol has the highest energy efficiency in comparison with DRL and direct transmission, and the lowest packet loss percentage or network outage probability in comparison with others. So, in conclusion, we have proposed a protocol which, even though does not rely on GPS, can benefit from a classical clustering approach. Our game changer is the mathematical idea that a noisy or semi-complete Euclidean distance matrix could be reconstructed by an acceptable accuracy. We have formulated the cluster selection problem as an ILP, which is solved by QGSA, and the result shows that the proposed approach surpasses current approaches. Any questions?
Did you examine the complexity of your node? For example, the convergence rate?
No, as our nodes are static, the reconstruction method, the reconstruction execution just happens one time, once throughout the whole network lifetime. And so we do not, that's not a big deal. And the part of our, the only step that we have to execute it regularly is the last step. If we did it by QGSA, that can handle this process at a reasonable amount of time.